Hey, good morning, everybody. You may have heard of the case of Isabel Vaughan-Spruce, who was a pro-life activist who was arrested in Birmingham in December outside an abortion centre. And she was dragged through the courts. She was found not guilty, but she's been arrested again for the same thing, which is silent prayer on the streets of England. I never in my life imagined that in England, in the UK, in the West, which is supposed to be upholding freedom and free speech, we would see this kind of Orwellian behaviour take place and take shape in our countries by the police. Have a look at this.
Yeah.
Can I please ask you to step away from here and step outside the exclusion zone?
I'm not protesting, I'm not engaging in any of the activities.
But you've said you're engaging in prayer, which is the offence.
It's silent prayer.
No, but you are still engaging in prayer. It is an offence.
I disagree.
Okay then. So you would rather that you be arrested and taken away than stand outside the exclusion zone? Is that what you're saying?
Are those the only two alternatives?
Yes.
I don't think I'm doing part of that because of the offence. I'm intimidating my capacity anyway, I'm not protesting.
So you can see there, the police are just following orders, like in another place that we can think of in our recent history. History shows us that just following orders to implement tyranny doesn't end well for the people who carry these things out, but is absolutely appalling what they were doing. They were harassing and intimidating a peaceful citizen who wasn't doing anything wrong, wasn't engaging in anybody, but was just standing on a street corner praying in her head. And they came up and intimidated her, questioned her, and told her that that was an offence. It's an offence to pray silently in your head in some places in England. That is absolutely wrong and appalling. That should never be happening. It should not be happening at all. But the reason why it's happening is because people have twisted and used legislation brought in to be activists, to act against people who are Christian, Catholic, whatever, who are pro-life and who support the right to life for unborn children. So in 2014, when Cameron was still the Prime Minister of the UK, they brought in something called public space protection orders. Now, they were meant to be used to stop people from drinking on a park bench and making lots of noise late at night, or from doing graffiti and things like this. They were not intended at the time. No one said they were ever intended to stop lawful, peaceful protest, let alone praying in your head. But what's happened is, in Ealing, where there is an abortion centre, there were pro-life groups helping mothers for 23 years, not intimidating people, but just offering advice and offering an alternative from going into the abortion centre and disposing of their children, which is a decision that you can't change. They would offer financial assistance, accommodation, support, care, counselling, adoption services, just a range of alternatives for mothers so they don't need to go through with that. Then what happened is some extreme left-wing activists turned up and they started making a big kerfuffle and loads of noise and shouting and hollering at the people who were offering help to mothers. So the whole thing just became an absolute circus, and they used that in order to say there's too much intimidation for women going into the abortion centres. We need to stop all protest, including the ones that were making the trouble, that were recent. But then obviously the purpose of that was a strategy, a tactic to stop pro-life people from being able to offer help to save children's lives. So Ealing Council used this public space protection order legislation to introduce a public space protection order around the abortion centre to say no one was allowed to protest there, no one was allowed to talk to anybody going into the centre, no one was even allowed to pray within 150 metres of the zone of the building where these things take place. And a number of people have gone there to pray and have been arrested. Most of the times their cases are dropped, or and nothing happens, but they still are going around. The police are still going in to arrest people. Since Ealing, this happened in Ealing in 2017, a number of other local authorities around the country where there are abortion centres have brought in public space protection orders as well. Richmond, Bournemouth, Birmingham, and so on. So Isabel Vaughan-Spruce, that most of you have seen the video of, being arrested in December in Birmingham, was supposedly breaching this local law that's brought in. It's not Westminster law, it's like secondary legislation brought in by a local council. So she's breaching this local public space protection order, which bans people from praying, silent praying. This is what they do, and this is absolutely abhorrent. It goes completely against all of our common law, all of our fundamental freedoms. She's not even expressing herself or speaking, she's just thinking in her head. So they've made thought crime illegal. They've actually put thought crime on the legislatory statute books, if you like, on local statute. What's even worse now is there's something going through Parliament on a national level, which wants to ban anybody from going to any abortion centre on a national level. So it won't just be implemented locally, council by council. They want to do this nationally. And they're using the public order bill, which is going through Parliament to do that. It's going through Parliament and the House of Commons at the moment. There's two things the public order bill is doing, which is quite abhorrent. This is one of them. It wasn't originally intention to do this, but this was added. These restrictions on buffer zones around abortion centres around the country, nationally, were added in an amendment to the public order bill a few months ago by a Labour MP who's very, very anti-pro-life supporters, called Stella Creasy. She's got form on this. And she introduced an amendment to the public order bill, which was absolutely draconian. I'm going to read some of the clauses in this. It says, so for the purposes of subsection 1, interferes with. So you're not supposed to interfere with anybody who is working or going into an abortion centre. This is what this new law would say. Interferes with means seeks to influence, persistently, continuously, or repeatedly occupies. So that could just mean standing there, like Isabel Vaughan-Spruce is doing, silently praying. If the police think you're doing it repeatedly, they can arrest you for just repeatedly being in a buffer zone, not even doing anything. Impedes or threatens, okay, fair enough, because that's already law. You're not allowed to threaten people. You're not allowed to impede people and stop them from going where they want to go. That's already, in the law as it is. That's already, taken as something that you can't do. Intimidates or harasses. Well, of course, that's already law. You're not allowed to intimidate or harass anyone anyway. And the pro-life supporters who were outside abortion centres for many, many decades, helping mothers, were not impeding or threatening or intimidating or harassing them in any way. It was the far left activists who came in to intimidate the pro-life supporters, who were the ones that actually should have been brought up by the police for harassment. Then it says, advises or persuades, attempts to advise or persuade, or otherwise expresses opinion. So this is saying you're not allowed to express your opinion in certain areas in public in England and Wales. Where have we got to where we've got someone bringing a law saying in certain places in public you know, private places, okay, fair enough. You know, if you're at work, whatever, you do your jobs. You know, I still think you should be able to express your opinions at work and have a bit of banter at work if you want to. But on the street, everyone is allowed to express their opinion wherever they want. They can say whatever they like, whenever they like, to whomever they like, you know, providing they're not inciting violence. But here we've got a law that is going through Parliament saying that in certain places you're not allowed to express your opinion. This is tyrannical. And then it goes on, informs or attempts to inform about abortion services by any means, including without limitation, graphic, physical, verbal, or written means. So you're not allowed to say things. You're not allowed to display things or show pictures or give out leaflets with writing on to people on the public highway, on the street, in public. Well, of course you are. But this law is going against our fundamental freedoms, you know, at a very, very basic level. And it should not go through. I mean, this is totally repugnant to common law. And so, you know, it shouldn't stand up in court if it goes before a jury. You know, that's the thing with this, they bring in a statute and then, you know, to overturn it in the courts with case law, someone has to be the fall guy, you know, to actually test this, get arrested, get charged under this piece of legislation, and then go to the court and risk going to jail for just using your fundamental freedoms. You know, and this is what Isabel Vaughan-Spruce has done, and other people as well have done this too. There's the Father Sean Goff, there's Christian Hacking from CBR did this, you know, a few years ago as well. Was arrested outside the Ealing centre and charges were dropped against him. Isabel Vaughan-Spruce got arrested, charges were dropped against her, but she went on to the court in February and got a ruling that said she was not guilty. So the court had found her not guilty of praying when prayer was apparently outlawed by the Public Space Protection Order. And now she's been arrested again just before this new piece of legislation, this national legislation, is going through Parliament and is going to get voted on by the MPs. So she shouldn't have been arrested under the Public Space Protection Order by these police that you saw earlier on, because the case law says she was not guilty. So the case law has overturned the Public Space Protection Order that says that prayer, silent prayer, is illegal. It should never, no one in their right mind should ever have decided or written something into the local law in Birmingham or Ealing or anywhere else that says prayer should be illegal on the street. I mean, this is just tyrannical, completely tyrannical. And those police are utterly despicable. You know, harassing a woman for silent prayer, harassing her and intimidating her to tell them what she's thinking in her head, and then saying that's an offence, and then threatening her if she doesn't leave, she'll be arrested, even though she's just standing on the street, not harming a soul. She's actually praying for people, which is doing good for people. What do they want? Do they want a country where people don't pray and, you know, hit each other over the head? Why are they not going out and arresting burglars and rapists and things like that? Why are they intimidating peaceful Christian women and men as well, who are just praying on the streets? This is what the country's come to. And, you know, these people have just completely lost any kind of moral compass or centre. They need to either stop being police or change and do what they're supposed to do, which is protecting our freedoms and protecting, you know, what's good. Don't go and harass people who are doing good. Go and arrest people who are real criminals and doing bad things. That's what the police are supposed to do, but they're not doing that. And, you know, that was just one example. This is happening in many, many places as well in other things. But the thing going through Parliament at the moment, yeah, so this, it doesn't specifically mention prayer in here. It doesn't specifically say that silent prayer will be an offence like the local public space protection orders. But it does say that if you repeatedly occupy a so-called buffer zone outside an abortion centre, then that's an offence. So that they would just come and intimidate you and arrest you perhaps for this on different legislation than the ones that gave rise to the PSPOs. I mean, just as an aside, the other thing the Public Order Act or bill is going to do, which is absolutely appalling, is increase. Well, they're going to give police stop and search powers at protests or before protests without suspicion. So if the police suspect anybody of carrying anything which they might use in a protest, even if there's no suspicion, they can stop and search you. Now, at the moment, there's stop and search. I agree with stop and search to reduce crime, particularly knife crime, in areas where there is a high level of violent crime. I think it's good to have stop and search in those places. It's done with suspicion. This is introducing stop and search without suspicion anywhere. So if they just suspect you're going to a protest, which is allowed, people are allowed to protest, people are allowed free speech and freedom of expression, they can stop you, arrest you, and they can get you banned. The courts can ban someone from going to a protest, for a certain number of years, 5 years, 10 years, I don't know. But they can ban you from going to a protest, even if you've not broken the law or done anything wrong, just on suspicion that you might say something, or you might hold up a banner, or you might give out some flyers. The thing is that you've got all these far left activists who are causing all kinds of trouble. This Extinction Rebellion and so on, and Black Lives Matter, but it Just Stop Oil people who go and make a right, pain and a nuisance of themselves. This is all planned. They're doing this to create a reaction. So people go, we got to stop this. We need to give these police the extra powers to deal with Extinction Rebellion, Just Stop Oil, Black Lives Matter, etc. Then they'll just go away. But what they will really use them for is to target freedom protesters and pro-life protesters and people who are against these, the agenda, whatever you like to call it, the New World Order, the Build Back Better agenda, the reproductive rights agenda, the Green New Deal agenda, the climate emergency agenda, Agenda 2030. It's all the same thing, basically. It's everything that is going against life, against freedom, against family, against national sovereignty, against ordinary working people who just want to get on with their lives. The governments and the globalists behind them are making war on the people, and they're trying to take away our freedoms by hook and by crook and by stealth in ways that people don't understand what they're doing, unless your eyes are open and you're aware and you can see what's going on. So this public order bill is just simply part of the agenda to take away our freedoms for people who really are standing up for what is good and what is right, and they're doing it by getting all kinds of lefty activists to actually make a pain of themselves. So it's the same with these Just Stop Oil protesters, and it's the same with these anti-pro-life protesters who went and made a huge circus of outside the abortion centres and did start intimidating and harassing people, and then they got the mainstream media, of course, does their job, and then they throw mud at the pro-life protesters and saying, well, they're harassing women, when they weren't harassing women at all. They were trying to save the lives of children so they didn't get disposed of in the abortion centres. So that's what's happening, and this is what's happening at the moment with this law, or this bill going through Parliament. If it passes, it will become law, and only the Heritage Party will overturn this. We're the only ones who are saying this is wrong, as a political party. Tory, Labour, Lib Dem, Green, you've got a few dissenters who are saying, oh, no, we need to stick up for this. But the majority of Tories, vast majority of Labour, Lib Dem, Green, SNP, they're all working together to bring in more restrictions on our freedom. and to stop peaceful pro-life protesters from helping mothers. This is what they're trying to do. So this, sadly to say, it probably will pass in Parliament, but there will be a general election within a year or a year and a half. And we will overturn this if we get a chance. So please do support us in the Heritage Party. If you're pro-life and if you're pro-freedom, you're just one of the two. If you don't want draconian stop and search restrictions on protesters without suspicion, if you don't want these restrictions on freedom of speech outside abortion centres where people are arrested for praying in their head or just being there, even with a silent vigil, with a silent sign so that people can come and talk to them and get help. If you are against the restrictions on this, then please do come and join me in the Heritage Party, because we stand against those other parties that are taking away our freedom. You can join us on heritageparty.org. And obviously at a local level, if we get in power anywhere, we will overturn any PSPO that's there that puts any restrictions on buffer zones. But the thing is, with this legislation going through Parliament, this will be national and it will override the PSPOs. You won't need them anymore. So when they expire after 3 years, then the national legislation will take over. But what we will do is, if we have the chance, we will overturn this public order bill, which is draconian and Orwellian and is going to trample on our freedoms. And we will also overturn the PSPOs so they don't come back again. And these restrictions on pro-life activists who are helping mothers don't find themselves being tarred and tainted as illegal and outlaws on a local level. So please do come and join us and stand in the elections if you think you're able to stand up for freedom and to stand up for the lives of unborn children on a local or national level. So thanks for listening, everybody. That's what's going on, and we need to make a change. God bless you all.